Hey guys, today we're going to start building a component system in Java. I've been researching this for quite a while and haven't seen a good implementation or a tutorial on this component system. What is a component system, you might ask? Well, a component system is like having an object, and instead of having inheritance such as a one-way inheritance with extending, we can have multiple components such as move, speak, name, some sort of data we can tag along to that object. So let's get started. So we're going to create a new package called main. The source folder, it should have been components, but here we go. See how here's our main package, and I'm going to have a main method called main. This is not important to us yet, but it's good to have this here. So let's create a new package called components. This package would contains all of the components needed to run an entity system. So we need a class called components so we can extend from the components. We also want an interface. I don't know why we have it, but we still need the interface. So components, just in case we need to have methods that need to be in the components. In the components class, we're going to have instance if it loads, implements, components. Oh, I misspelled something. components. I'm going to call it components interface. Sorry about that. Rename. Okay. So implements component interface from our component. And basically that's all we're going to have. You can have some fields like boolean, protected boolean update. So we can have an update method that if this is true, we can update. But I'm gonna delete that. Ooh. Okay. So now we're gonna have a new class, and this would be our first component. So I'm gonna say position component. With position component, we can extend the component class, and then make our fields public. So public float x and y. Let's create another component. So let's say name. And extend components. And then public string name. Position and name. You can extend this to however you want. It's basically something to hold data. So let's make a new package called entities. Package entities. And call a new class entities. How original. And it's actually going to be an abstract class, I believe, because we want to do something with this entities class. So I'm bringing up my own components and basically working off of that a little bit. So in this entities class, we want to have a map where we can have an ID. So I'm going to make a protected UUID. A UUID is a unique, is basically what it stands for is universally unique identifier. Basically, it takes a long string, which is totally random, and assigning it that ID. So public, or protected actually, because this is an abstract class. Protected, UUID, ID. So now we have our ID system in place, basically. We would like to have something to keep track of all of this, but I could do it later, but it's easy. You just have to have a list of UUIDs and instantiate it. Add all the entities with every time you create a new UUID, you just add it to the list. Now moving on to the components, we want to have a map. And this map would take care of all, or link the components to the entities, or the entity to the component. So this would be a protected, because each of the entities need a component. Static, because it can only have one instance. Hash map. And hash map is basically having a key object and a value object instead of a list, which only takes one object. So we want a class and then a new hash map. And think of this as a array inside of array, or nested arrays. So UUID, and then we're going to use some generics. Generics is pretty hard to understand, but after a while you get to it. I'm gonna put a question mark because you can put T or something, but I'm just gonna use a question mark. And I'm gonna extend the components class. Here we go. Okay, extended the components class, and I'm going to call that components equals. You can start it in the constructor, but you don't have to start it in the constructor. You can start it up here, which I'm going to do. So new hash map, and I'm going to make diamonds, saying take whatever this is, so class hash maps, yada yada yada, and just use them. Otherwise you can just copy all that and paste them over here, but I'm not going to do that because I'm lazy. And then import that, save it. Now we have our class. So let's make the constructor protected entity. This we want to instantiate the ID, so ID, and then we give it a random UUID, so random UUID, and you can add to list of all entities, and then again we can have list of all of entities. I put entities, but whatever. I can put ES to fix it. So let's say we want to attach a component to our class. There's a couple ways we can do this, but I'm going with whatever my file on the side of my screen here says. So we're gonna make a public static variable first. Then we have to go back to do a public void. So public static. So we can do this from any class. Void actually is a generic this time. It's the same thing what we did up here, but if you understand it, that's good. You can research it all you want, and I can basically research it all I want, and it still won't go through my head. But it's basically taking a random object and assigning it a name, I think. I don't know. Don't quote me. So let's say T extends components again. And it's going to return a void and add components. And technically, we should have a UUID entity and our T components. So we're going to attach the entity to the component with the and push in a UUID. So to do this, we're going to create a temporary hash map. So hash map of UUID and question mark extends component and call this store. So this would store have a temporary. Actually, no, never mind. We're adding. Never mind. Actually, we're going to get the stores. Hash map. Oh, I see here. So before we do any of this, we want to synchronize this. And with synchronize, we basically, if we're accessing two different threads at the same time, something's going to get corrupted in the list here. Like, one could write something and then it could write over on the second thread, and it's going to get messy. So we're going to synchronize this using the synchronize function. So synchronize. Thank you. And the component stores. So the components class list. I'm going to make a temporary hash map of UUID and our generics. And this is going to take the our components and get the components to see if, or get the current component, see if we already have it, and then add it to the list. So if store, can't type, is null, and store equals new hash map of UUID and our generic. And then we put the new store into the class. So we put into the class, so components at get class, and our value would be component, or store, sorry. Wrong line. And if that's not the case, we're just gonna put it in the components, it looks like. So hash map of UUID and our generics class store dot put entity in our components. Now I'm going to move that to right here. So that's adding one entity. We can basically copy this because we don't want to insert an entity every time. So we can copy all of that, paste that there, and just remove entity to just require the component. I'm going to remove the static variable because this is for the components that's going to use, or the entities that need this. So just remove the stack there. Now you're asking, now what happened to this entity? Well, remember that we have this ID up here. We can access that ID. So just insert this ID, or ID if you don't want this, but anyways. Moving on to a get component. I'd rather have a has component to make sure we have the component first, but I'm going to start making out the get component, and it's just easy adding the has component for your class. So we want a public static, and then again with the generics t get component, or t get components, and I can't even spell. Get components. So this components class is going to get a class of t. And this class would have the name of component. And I don't know how to spell today, so don't mind my spelling. You can probably do it better than me, so yeah. So we get the component. We want to get the hash map with the entity's ID. Actually, we should get the UUID of entity. Hash map of UUID question mark extends component store equals components dot get component. So basically we're going to get the first index here of class, and then we get our UUID and component. So if the results, we're going to store results in our T results, and then we're going to get the component using store.get in the list of entities. And then we're going to cast that to T, typecast it to T. And if the results is null, we have to return something. So my example class is going to return through a new exception. Through an exception or irregular argument, and you can do something, but I'm going to just copy and paste this. Here we go. Control C, go back over here, Control V, and semicolon. And since we just want to change that to component, and the entity to string, because that was for the other one that we're going to create. So we throw a new exception every time there's nothing in the results. But now there's something in the results, or if there's something in the results, we want to return out of it. So to do this, we want to return results. And that's all we have to do for get component. So there's actually one more method, and it's basically copying all of this and making it become more like that. And it's pretty simple again. Just remove the entity, remove the static, and then return get with this ID, this ID, and that's basically... Oh. I didn't get that. Why didn't I get that? Oh. That's why. That should be illegal argument exception. So we now have our get components, and basically to have the has component, all we have to do is when there's a null, we return false. Otherwise, we return true. So basically, copy both of these down. Change that to boolean has. Get rid of that line and true. Return false. Again, get rid of that line. Return false. True. Has and boolean. Now the entities class is done. Now let's import or make a new entity called player. So we're going to extend our entity. And it may ask us to use a constructor, but this time it's not. So let's create a constructor. So we have a new player. Let's say we want to add a component, since we have a full component system built, because once we finish our entities class here, basically it's all built for us. We're going to call a super method to get an ID, because ID is extended from entities to our player. So we can add a component without the stack method. So add component, and you get this two options for an UUID and no ID. And I'm going to take with the no UUID because since we started our entities, we added we're just extending the entities with an ID. We can just leave it blank and it can do it the rest for us, fill in the blanks for us. What I like to do when I add a component, I'm going to start a new component first. So let's say position. And there's multiple, but make sure you get your correct component. So position. And then we set our variable. So position.x equals 10f position dot z equals 20f, and we add a new position. Notice we didn't add name. If we could do that later, but back to our main.java, we're going to start our new player. I'm going to name this player Jack. For example, import our player with Control-Shift-O, and I'm going to use this out and Control space to autofill. So Jack dot. We want to always check if we have the component, but I'm not going to do that because it can know what I have. So Jack dot get components, and then to get the component that we want, we can do position or get our class component dot class. So we're going to call the class, and it knows what we're expecting. So dot x. I like this a lot because you don't have to typecast every time. Now let's run it. Oh, there's an error in our code. Oh, it's supposed to be y, sorry. Lo siento. Here we go. Terminated 10. And if I go back, our x is 10. That's good, that's good. So, let's say if you want to, on the fly, add a component. So, to do this, we do jack that add component, new, and let's say name component. We can do that, but I think like adding it from a static entity or a static instance would be good for this too. So we can do name jack name new name so jack name dot name it should be in here. Oh, I imported the wrong name component. Wow. Okay, now we should have the right name component. There we go. And let's name him Jack. Now we didn't attach this component to the player, and if we do quickly do a sys out on Jack that has component of the name component that class, it'll return us with false and then the number, and it's give us a null pointer. We shouldn't do this, but let's follow it. Oh, okay. So it's giving us a null pointer because I think hold on. Jack. Oh, I bet I forgot to. This ID equals random ID. Okay. As component class T. equals has component. Okay, it's down here. I'm going to just remove this then. ID. No pointer. 61. Okay. Hmm. T extends. Well, we know it's null because results equals null. Actually, we can just put store.get. Results. And then don't forget to double cast it. Anyways, I can actually go on with the UUID approach. Jack that has component. I don't know why it's not working, but so we don't have the name component, and we can just know that by looking at the null pointer exception. But we could always catch that. But as component, we can statically, let's say it, entities, and then jack.id. And I'm going to actually change that to public, so I can access that. Weird. Anyways, you just saw what I was about to do, but entities that Jesus, I can't. Add component UUID jack component name jack name. So get component. Oh, wrong. Jack ID, and it should fix that. So if we actually change that to name.class, name component class, and change that to name, we get Jack, and we can put random strings, and it'll still get what we wanted while holding the other component. So now you basically have that component system, and I'm going to leave the rest up to you because that's how you learn and that's how you do stuff. Anyways, hope you like this tutorial. I'm not going to beg for you to like or anything, but I hope you like it, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for much for watching.